Welcome back, everybody, to a special episode, number 56 of the Roses and Rhetoric podcast. Of course, you'll know right away I'm joined by my charming co-host,
Joseph Stanford.
but you're probably wondering who the third participant is. For those of you who have been with the show for a long time, you know that we are desperately looking through the rank and file of who's who to find a general manager for our intramural softball team. Joining us today is Porter Olstat, interviewing for that position. Porter, a little bit of background before we hop into the interview.
All right. Well, currently I am an active member and a starting left center fielder on the intramural kickball team. It is a Friday night beer league, non-competitive, but we do throw fists. Bare knuckle brawls at the end if there's a tie up, anything like that. Currently, I'm working in a position where I scream at children all day as a swim coach. Very strong passion I have. And in my spare time, I do work as a teacher.
Before hopping into the interview, let's talk about the social dynamics of the beer league. Obviously, competitive environment, a lot of alpha males going for top spot. What do you do to stand out among the crowd?
Well, my best go-to move, sliding headfirst into third, but before I do so, I loosen up the gym shorts to make sure it all comes out.
That's what I'm wanting to hear. All coming out. And of course, it'll all be coming out today during the course of this interview. We're here to learn a little bit about Porter, about what makes him a good candidate for the position, and ultimately to build a strong softball team. Bill, when you're ready, our first question for Porter.
Okay. Before getting into origin stories, let's set the stage for our audience. Who do we have with us?
No. We already did that question, Joe. Number two.
All right, second question.
If I wouldn't mind,
yes.
y'all wouldn't mind, can I open with a question for you about the position here?
That's fine. We can do that. Sure.
All right. Well, I had one prepared for you, Jimmy, but you did find a date with your razor, so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
But Joe, the Aquaman / Jesus look, it's not employable.
I don't know, man. I was going for more of the Randy Johnson look. I feel like that's
okay. So there. All right. That's that. There. You led me right to where we were going. Is what were you going for there? And why is this just? It's tragic.
The stringy, greasy hair, the mustache, the 98-mile-per-hour fastball. Yeah, it's all in the arsenal.
Well, not to mention that beautiful painting behind Joe that he must have went out of the claw machine at a Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah, it was a big claw for a big painting.
Big claw for a big painting and for a big payout. Porter, let me actually move on to our real first question for this interview. I know you best as a person with the gift of gab, a heckler par excellence, and I know that you honed this craft in high school. Tell us a little bit about that journey of honing the craft of heckling in high school, some memories you may have and some of the challenges you faced practicing that craft at a Catholic high school.
Well, it's interesting, and I definitely attribute this skill to not being bolder, but being able to toe that line. And, if somebody's got big ears, you go with the Dumbo. If somebody's got, little overweight, Pillsbury Doughboy is always a solid contender. It's practice and it's confidence. My best story as a heckler is actually at a U of A baseball game. It was against ASU near the end of the season. They needed to win the game, so it was pretty big. My uncle and I arrived probably about 4.5 innings late and decided, hey, you know what? We've got general admission, but there's 2 seats right behind home plate, maybe 2 rows behind the fence. Let's just go sit there for as long as we can. Well, a couple of beers later, I'm heckling as I normally do. And the crowd around, I notice, starts to laugh a little bit. Then we get bombarded by another drunk guy that just starts throwing out your mom jokes. You've got to be original. Yeah. He gets tossed. I keep heckling. And pretty soon, one of the security guys comes down and says, can I see your tickets? I said, oh, I accidentally threw them away when I had a receipt, yada, yada. He's like, these aren't your seats. Well, no, they weren't my seats. And he said, well, here's the problem. Normally we'd be all right with it, but you're getting picked up on the live feed broadcast being on our local radio stations with Brian Jeffries. So, as Brian Jeffries is calling his games as he normally does, you've got me in the back. Hey, you better just take a timeout. Bullpen's got to warm up. They got to warm up. I'm feeling the breeze. Just you gotta keep it light and family friendly. If little tangent there. Sorry, but yeah.
So avoid your mom jokes, and you can still stay in.
That's
And
it. That's a
what
big
ultimately
no.
happened with that? Did you make friends with Brian Jeffries? Did they relocate you? Did you tone it down?
As we were exiting on our last return, I had about 4 people offer me their tickets, and they were going to go to the general admission areas, so I could just stay and end up heckling. So yeah, but we took our pass, left in a moment of glory, and stayed on top.
Wow, very impressive. What do you think?
One of my favorite go-tos while I'm on the subject and thinking about it is, if somebody smaller statute, you ask them if it's their age or their shoe size when they're up to bat. That's always a good one. That's always a classic.
I always like when you would ask players very politely, but you would warn players that their thongs were hanging out. You would just let them, and that was really more of just for their own benefit. That was just all for their own benefit.
Yeah,
you're just being friendly at that point.
Yeah, and you've won at a high school basketball game when the opposing team runs up the court, flipping you the bird. Yeah. So that's how you're in their head. Game over.
And it's all about getting in their head. Everybody knows it's 90% mental on the field. I wanted to ask a little bit about any close encounters you may have had. You're just talking about this, but as kind of a amateur heckler, have you ever had any close encounters with violence? Has anybody ever threatened you? And anybody after a game? Have you ever felt scared leaving a game after heckling somebody?
No, I typically pick my environment wisely. I've had a few people to tell me to shut the fuck up, and I said, "What's wrong? Did I hurt your feelings?" And you usually come back with a lighthearted joke just to belittle them, and then you get the support of the crowd and power in numbers. But if it came down to it, let's do it.
Let's do it. We already heard earlier on you're not afraid to throw some fists at the kickball field, so I'm happy to hear that as well.
All right, I think we're ready for question number 3, which is a nice segue from the closed fist. So violence has been a theme on this show recently.
I'm a few episodes behind, so I don't know. But anyways, continue.
So I just want to follow up on this. Has the closed fist ever made any contact? Some other candidates applying for this role, such as Brian Anderson, have been known to get in full-fledged fist fights. Has that ever happened in your situation?
There's been a couple of times. One was outside of a bar. I ended up getting somebody kicked out because they were just being an ass to us, and he waited outside the bar. And as soon as I saw him engaged, that's about it. I tend to avoid those types of conflicts, but if such things arises and there's a necessity, I'm all for it.
Mr. Miyagi, right? Never fight, but if fight, win.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the dual mandate that the heckler has: entertaining the crowd and distracting the other team. I'd like to hear a little bit about the thought process you engage in during the game. What do you care more about, getting in the other team's head or entertaining the crowd?
It's hard to differentiate between the two, because if you're doing a good job, the crowd has got a good belly laugh going while the other team is just steaming in their panties. It's one of those things where I guess, the whole goal is to distract the team away from what they're doing. But, along the way, if you can get a good laughs, it just adds to the confidence, and the heckles just keep rolling.
I want to talk about if a team isn't really doing they're not playing to their full potential, and the heckling of the other team just isn't working. What about the referee? Is the referee fair game? Is that an effective way to heckle? What do you think?
there's an unwritten rule, and pro sports have put in fines for complaining about the referees. No, they're fair game. They're a part of the game. They're a part of the field. They're, if they're making bad calls, they need to know about it. If they're robbing somebody of their opportunities, they need to know about it. You stay away from the personal attributes of a referee or umpire. You tend to stay away because they're typically overweight, out of shape, and can barely run 15 yards. But the eyes are always a good one, telling them that their parents don't love them. Just certain things to kind of cut deep and let them know you're watching them too.
Okay.
I definitely agree with that. The referee is on the field. If you're on the field, let the boys play. That's always been my rule.
So we've talked a little bit about heckling during baseball and during similar events. Jimmy, I know that I wouldn't quite call it a heckling event, but I think you did make a halftime spectacle at a high school basketball game.
Yes, I did.
Do you want to just touch on that briefly and explain what happened before we proceed to the next question?
Oh, sure. I would say one thing that I share with Porter is a love of showmanship. I love showmanship. I love when people are willing to make themselves the center of attention. I was at a high school basketball game, and I was actually with Porter at this game, who, as I remember, was doing a great job heckling the other team. And halftime came about, and some of the members of the other school went out into the court during halftime, began dancing around, having a good time. I thought, well, that doesn't seem fair to me. It was an away game. Our school was the away team. So I thought, well, if they can dance on their court, I'd be able to dance on their court as well. And I did. Dancing, having a good time, began taking my clothes off, as is customary in many cultures, I'll point out. And then they turned the music off and I fell to the floor, symbolizing at that point the death of art. That here you are stopping the music and stopping my performance. Now, at this point, their security removed me from the venue, which I felt was a little aggressive,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of an overreaction. And at this point, I was a little scared because I thought I'd never really been in that much trouble before. But lo and behold, the next day at school, the principal came over to me, asked me if I was the person who danced on the court during halftime, to which I confessed immediately. He shook my hand, wished me a good rest of the day, and we had a friendship ever since then. I consider that a win.
Of the homeschool, right?
No, the principal of our school. The next day at school, this happened. And to me, that was a wonderful moment, and the beginning of a friendship, and one that I cherish to this day.
Good old smiling Jim.
Well, because really, I think if you're going to allow kids to parade around and act in buffoonery, it ought to be equal time, as it were. If the home team can do it, the away team can do it. I don't believe in favoritism. So, to me, to turn the music off was aggressive, and then to remove me from the venue was just so dramatic.
Right. Did they let you put your clothes on first, or did they just haul you out?
Well, they handed me my clothes. They handed me, otherwise it would have been theft, and I would have pressed charges. As it was simply just a removal from the venue. But again, I thought that was an overreaction. On my old fashioned, I guess.
Yeah, that's bad sport ethics.
Which game was this? I can't remember.
I'll remind you off the air. I don't want to give away any school names.
Fair.
during the recording. It was a good game, though. You were having a good time there. For people who are wondering what we're trying to accomplish on today's show, I'll just remind you that we are in fact interviewing Porter for the GM position of our intramural softball team. We're having a heck of a time doing it. Porter, let me ask you our last written question, and then we'll try to fill the time with spontaneous thoughts as they enter into our head. Baseball seems like the ideal sport for heckling due to all the breaks in the action. Have you had success in other arenas?
Many different arenas. Baseball and softball are always a good go-to. I was recently at the Cardinals-Vikings game, and I decided to go after Matt Prater, the kicker. And being, the away team in a home stadium, luckily we were about 7 rows back, so I definitely know he could hear me and tell him how, he sucked on the Lions and he's going to continue to suck on the Cardinals. once I'd had my fun with him, I moved on to AJ Green and explained to him that he needed to retire and that he was washed up and he couldn't run with the best of them anymore. I can't say that I was one of my most successful ventures, but I did get a good few belly laughs from the home crowd, and I'll have to take to social media to see if any of the star athletes had actually heard me, as it is quite a large event and quite a large venue. But I do have some carry to my voice, so who knows?
You said you were there with your dad, right, at the game?
My dad was there. I was actually sitting with my uncle, who, interestingly enough, was with me at that U of A game.
Okay.
My dad was in the press boxes that game, or not the press box, but one of the sky boxes.
So that's my next question: is heckling a generational talent? Like, is it run in the family? Is there the bug, the gene?
I wouldn't say as much so heckling, but definitely that slapstick humor that lets you know when your drawers are hanging out kind of mentality. I frequently pass my dad, or our paths cross on our morning commute. One lane road each way when I'm heading to work and he's heading out for the day. Got a new car with a sunroof, and he rolls his window down and we greet with the bird every morning. And it's just, it's a great way to start the day.
I like that. That's some good old fashioned family fun. I think one thing I'm curious, Porter, is how you survived during COVID, given the banishing of kind of in-person sports. I mean, I would imagine you're definitely excited to see venues open up again and, to see kind of a social atmosphere return. But is it the same? I mean, when you're watching a venue at home, when you're and it's on the television, I talk during sports games. I'm sure you do as well. But I imagine that for all the fun you have of making fun of somebody on the television screen, it's never as fun as being in the venue themselves, or the person you're heckling has a real chance at hearing your insults.
Yeah, it's just not the same whether you're in a bar or at home or some other venue to watch. It's not the same. You need the smell of the grass, the smell of sweat and beer in the air. You need the ambiance to really hone in on those skills.
Yeah. Speaking of,
Go ahead and cut me off. That's fine. Go ahead.
Sorry, Jim. Snooze, you lose. Speaking of the smell of beer and sweat in the air, a common question that we ask the applicants for this position is, because as you know, the GM role is to provide snacks for the team.
Yeah.
What type of snacks would you consider bringing to the team if you were hired for this role?
Well, we'll have to double check into the rules and see how blatant we can be about this, but it would probably have to be some sort of a 3 or 4 course event. We'd have to start off with Jello shots, continue on with shots of Everclear, maybe, something on the lighter side for it's co-ed, correct?
Correct.
Just want to make sure. Yeah, maybe a little vodka or something on that and through the end there. Got to have your salty. So we'd go with some peanuts, maybe some popcorn, something like that. And post game, we ended off Jello shot. That's, pretty way to do it. That's a great way. That's how we do it with kickball. It's a great way to just build camaraderie and loosen up.
I like that. I'm a big believer in snacks myself, and I thank Joe for reminding us about that. Let's talk about building teams. You mentioned that you're a coach. We've been talking a lot about your aptitude as a heckler, but also let's touch into your aptitude on leadership in the sports arena. What are the key areas of building a strong team? What are some themes that we can use to really rally our team behind? Vengeance, the blood feud, these kind of strong, themes. What can we use to encourage the best of our players?
And this is a great question. I appreciate the thoughtfulness put into this, but my motto and mentality with my teams is rub some dirt on it. You get a scratch, you rub some dirt on it. You get knocked down, you rub some dirt on it. You have a rough night, you have to get a haircut and you start crying about it, you rub some dirt on it. It's just, You got to build up the toughness, win or lose, you got to just rub some dirt on it.
Buy a new shirt, rub some dirt on it. That was my grandfather's advice. When you get a new truck, hit it with a hammer. I hope he never did that, but he's no longer with us.
I forget who it was, but the had a new pair of shoes and decided they were just too bright and too shiny, and he just dragged his feet around in the dirt and started throwing dirt on his brand new white shoes. And I was impressed. I couldn't believe it. And I said, "What are you doing that for?" Well, they're just too shiny. So that's the way we went.
Dirt on it.
I like that. I like that. Maybe that can be our motto, Joe. Rub some dirt on it. We are playing on a softball field, plenty of dirt around. Joe, do you have any other questions for
Yeah.
Porter?
How about the participation awards? What's your philosophy on participation awards?
That's a good question.
You know, you've got to walk away with something, and I think your participation awards needs to be memories. And if you're at the bottom of the barrel, you need to remember that sting of loss. As far as giving somebody an award or something like that, I think, in all honesty, there's no better slap in the face than, "Hey kid, you got last. Here's a trophy."
Right.
So I'm all
Especially
for
if
the
that trophy has some
participation.
dirt on it.
Yeah, I'm all for it. Because it's just, you see that trophy and it's just a sting of how much you sucked.
Yeah, that's always my thought when I look at all my participation trophies.
We alluded to it earlier, but this will be a co-ed team with boys and girls. What would you do as a GM to ensure good team cohesion between the females and the males on the team?
Well, you got
Keep in
to.
mind that Joe's wearing that hat.
He hasn't decided which side he's on yet.
Was it a little too fresh? Does it need some dirt on it first?
There's some dirt on that hat, Joe.
Some dirt on it.
A little too bright.
I'm all for it, but if you're not willing to pack a lip, then you're not material for this team. You got to, long cut, pick your choice, pick your flavor. Let's get a spit. Pardon me?
What about the Zins? Are the Zins permissible?
Only if you're really trying to conceal it.
Mm.
But I'd much rather see a fat knot and juicy jaws.
Juicy Jaws. That's Jim's old nickname from back in the day, right?
Yeah, but it was from Juicy Fruit. Different kind of addiction.
Right. It's short-lived addiction.
Short-lived. Well, it was, not the best gum, but not the worst. Joe, any other questions for our guest? Or
I don't know, Jim. I think you got one more question for him.
Well, I just want to know, Porter, in this great game of life, when we're playing these sports, when we're playing intramural sports, I'm fascinated by the concept of the rivalry. I'm fascinated by the concept of the never-ending battles that exist in our great histories. ASU, U of A, good and evil, however you want to phrase it. I believe that these rivalries serve an important function in all sports teams, and I'm really curious to know if as we begin our team, are you going to foster that kind of rivalry in our team against another group?
I'm all for rivalries, but I think the most important part of a rivalry is the history of the rivalry. Why ASU will always be scum to me is the sense that they mocked Lute Olson the week after his wife had passed and he was coaching. Classless. The fact that their mascot is a devil.
Yeah, literally.
The colors are maroon and yellow. Classless. It gives you just a dirty feeling on the inside. And while I won't go looking for a rivalry, I won't forget.
I like that. And yeah, I think that's a good thing to remember, that in the context of intramural sports, right and wrong exists. There are good guys and bad guys, and we should remember this in all of our pursuits in life. It's just as true on the softball field as it is on the battlefield. There's good and evil in this world, and it's important to be on the right team. And Porter, if we make you the offer, I hope that you pick the right team, which would of course be us.
Definitely top of my list as it stands right now. It's narrowed down to a short list now, but you're still riding at the top there. With the producers contacting me for this, I was just ecstatic. Just couldn't wait to get on with you guys. I've enjoyed your banter and your conversations. I will always remember.
Some technical difficulties here. Seems we might have
Messages just stuck with me. And when you're going to become an adult, are we back?
Yeah, we're good.
It's one of those things that I've had to move on from my life with a backpack. Now, traveling, when you're on an airplane, backpack is a go-to. You need to have free hands to carry the 900 different things that you pick up in an airport. But as far as, going to work, the briefcase it's the move. It's the way to go. I feel like you're looked down upon by your coworkers when you're coming with your backpack and your Batman lunchbox to work. It's just, you've got to up your game a little bit.
Yeah, talk about low class.
Have you made the switch?
No, I'm still on the Rolly backpack.
The Rolly backpack. My God.
Function. I had another question.
Sure, let's keep it going.
We were talking about maroon and gold and bad colors for uniforms. Porter, I know that you've done some branding for different teams before. You've selected uniforms, you've done logos, you've done, I don't know, maybe even team names. What kind of ideas would you have for our team in terms of those?
Well, there's always classics that come to mind when you're naming teams. There's always, I think for intramural sports especially, you've got to toe the line of inappropriateness. One of my all-time favorites actually was a youth baseball team that I played against as a young child. They were called the Cool Arrows. And, the culero in Spanish roughly translates to an asshole or somebody who likes the asshole. So the culo is, a vulgar term for the sphincter. And, the culeros are, they're the assholers. And I just thought that was just
Brilliant.
prime. Yeah. You gotta be cultured to understand that one.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I like that one actually. That's really good. And I wonder if we can contact that team and see if that name is available.
We went to school with one of the players on that team, so we could probably make that happen.
Oh, good.
But yeah, making a bunch of 12-year-olds running around with jerseys saying "culero," that was just priceless.
Only in Arizona.
Yeah. But I'll have to think about the team name there. There's always Sandy Balls, Big Dick Swinging. That's always a good one. We could find some good ones. My uncle's got one that he played on an intramural softball team that they were. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but it was pretty good. Might have to be reused.
I like it.
Very good. Very good. Well, is that Porter? Any questions for me before we wrap up on today's special GM interview episode?
Well, did we hit our 20-minute mark, or do we got to ramble a little bit longer?
This is a ramble-free zone.
Yeah, no, this is all garbage time anyways. This might be a deleted episode. We might be visiting number 56 next week with our other. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. The hunt continues. We're definitely narrowing our search as well. And Porter, we're happy that you're still keeping us in the running from your other offers. Ultimately, I think we ought to view the world not as a stage, but as a field, a battlefield, a sports field. We're all competing for the same things: glory, pride, and orange slices, or in the case of Porter's team, Jello shots. So I want to thank Porter for being here, for interviewing for this position. We came to the plate, so to speak, on short notice, and we were happy to have him here. Porter, we hope that you had a good time and that you found it informative as well as entertaining.
Yeah, well, thank you guys. I appreciate the opportunity to be on here. I've enjoyed corresponding with your musical correspondent. This person has asked me to keep it completely anonymous, but I have fully enjoyed every album. I have yet to have your film review throw something out there that I haven't seen.
Oh, really?
So I have enjoyed those as well. You guys are doing a fantastic
You should
job.
come on more up because normally we haven't seen the films. So
It's I definitely enjoyed the reviews. I enjoy your content. If one suggestion, let's not stretch one book into 9 episodes. You'd lost me there a little bit. But other than that, you guys, I really enjoy your podcast, and it's great stuff. So thank you for interviewing me for the position here, and I continue to be a first time, long time.
Oh, I love that. First time, long time. And of course, we appreciate the validation of this podcast in the eyes of our viewers. Sure to follow us on social media. Follow Joe at Forze4_Cuervo on Instagram and Twitter. And follow Roses and Rhetoric, Roses_Rhetoric for Instagram and Twitter as well. Until next time, I'm Jimmy Hackett signing off for Joseph Stanford and Porter saying ciao.